Hi all, Rick here. Now, hear me out. Klingons, Vulcans, Romulans, all notable alien species of Star Trek, and what makes them stick out so much is their long histories and tales that exist woven into their lore. Mythologies, gods, battles, legends, and more. Delving into some of these tales can provide some differing tones of Trek. So for this video, I want to show you around the Forge of Vulcan, and show you there is more going on than you would think in this apparently barren desert. The Fire Plains of Vulcan is an area that we have visited occasionally and heard a lot about, so I thought I'd take a look at this location and its importance to the Vulcan people. It covered around 20,000 square kilometres of land, and lay at the centre of the Forge, the most renowned desert of Vulcan. Vulcan's Forge contained the capital city of Shakaar and the holy site of Mount Seleya. Seleya is credited as the primary monastery from which Surak taught his lessons on Kolinar, but it existed as a site long before this. One of its original functions was to act as a safe haven for the city of Shakaar, where it housed the daughter of Tevet from a warlord, Sulen. The fury of the warlord led him to lay siege to Seleya for 80 days and nights, before claiming victory against the clerics there, who had rained lightning down on the armies of Sulen. Upon his victory, however, he slaughtered all the inhabitants for the trouble, leading to a grim legend about the coloration of green stains on the mountainside. In reality, these are merely oxidized deposits of metals such as copper. Since the times of Surak, however, and the Great Awakening, it has had a far less tumultuous history, providing refuge for many as they survived the atomic war that ravaged their homeworld and set back their space exploration by a few centuries. Now, it is both a site of historical significance, with the deep crofts of the temples there home to many forgotten and ancient Vulcan gods, and the traditional ceremonies that continue on in their age of logic. Around this sacred site are many other places of interest, such as the Falantral Caves, the Halls of Ancient Thought and of Voices, the Kurat Temple Complex, and the Teklas Pillar. 37 kilometres south of Seleya was the Karath Sanctuary, which in 2154 would serve as the hideout of the Sirenites, an ancient burial ground for Vulcan philosophers from the time of Awakening. The Vaname Lakt was an underground complex dating back to before Surak and built to house the entire population of Shakaar in emergencies. Nowadays, the capital city has far too many residents, and the halls are owned by the Science Academy. The city of Shakaar housed the Vulcan Science Academy's main facility, and during ages past was home to their space institutes too. Originally the site of an oasis in the Forge, deep wells were dug there to bring it to the surface and provide much needed hydration to the surrounding area. As technology developed, the water spread further afield than the central town, and soon light farming and agriculture around the city could be supported by irrigation. With the invention of solar power, something Vulcan has no shortage of, Shakaar soon blossomed into a hub of civilization on the edge of the arid Forge. Nearby to this was the fortress, Palasht, which was built into the mountainside 500 metres up and contained a natural spring. To this day, the city as a whole acts as the seat of government for Vulcan, and itself is a major landmark and tourist destination. Many embassies reside here, including both the Federation and United Earth embassies. Spock was also born here, and his family owns property on the outskirts. Within the Forge, however, lies a harsher and even more volatile area, the Fire Plains. The plains themselves are the product of volcanoes, which, despite its arid atmosphere, we don't actually see much of. You see, Vulcan is highly tectonically active because it shares its orbit with a second planet, Tukut, which has its own moon. At various points in its orbit, the two planets are affected by each other's proximity, and this causes tectonic stress in Vulcan. The spires of rock to this day still give rise to torrents of lava that flow across its craggy surface, and the occasional eruption changes the navigable paths through the land. The plains were bracketed by 3 active volcanoes: Turan, Turial, and Turega. Their eruptions were closely monitored but never prevented, and the longest time between eruptions of one of these 3 peaks was only just over 10 years. Sporadically spread throughout the plains are the ruins and statues of a myriad of Vulcan civilizations that came before, some of which survive to this day thanks to their placement and sheer luck of surviving numerous ashfalls and wars. These towering statues used to mark out pathways and places of safety through the plains, but over the millennia, such markers are no longer reliable. Depicting ancient warriors and warlords, they're monuments to vanity to be constructed in such a hostile place, and it shows the level of barbarism present in proto-Vulcan cultures, the disregard for the welfare of those who built them. During the solar peaks, when flares and the heat were at their zenith, travel into the Fire Plains was considered too risky, and as such they were closed from public travel until the season cooled once more. Thanks to the continual burning flows and intense heat, unusual geological formations were found here, including intricate crystalline structures of numerous colours. The whole place is now a reserved site of cultural significance thanks to both the natural and constructed wonders there. At some point shortly after the time of awakening, a copy of the original teachings of Surak were making their way across these plains when they were supposedly lost. The exact nature of what unfolded is a mystery to archaeologists. There could have been a conflict, a lost courier, or a deliberate attempt to establish a temple here. Either way, the loss of the Kirshara was officially recorded as having them long buried under the Fire Plains. However, this was not the truth, and in fact they had survived the perilous journey and arrived in the nearby temple of Tukarath. One of the tales from ancient Vulcan that mentions the Fire Plains is the tale of Phalor's Journey, a parable about the benefits of sharing experiences and knowledge being its own kind of fulfillment. Passages of this epic are often recited as songs or lullabies, and it contains 348 verses. From this tale, however, we learn that the Temple of Kia was situated across the Fire Plains from the coastal province of Raal. Raal was considered the easiest coast to navigate on Vulcan, and as such had been an important point of contact since the planet's pre-industrial naval days. Another tale is the 23-part tale of the clash on the Fire Plains, which dates back to Proto-Vulcan times. Proto-Vulcan is a loose term used to generalise those Vulcans who existed before, very early into established civilization if not earlier. To give a comparison, the Vulcans' time of awakening correlates to around the 4th century, but even by this time, the species was already dabbling in warp technology and capable of creating neutron bombs. This places them further along than our current technological level, and they consider that the birth of their modern civilization. Earlier than this, they were still Vulcans, but essentially the earlier you go into their history, the more likely you are to hear the term Proto-Vulcan. Vulcans themselves are descendants of the Aratans, who colonised multiple worlds, and this era is completely lost to myth. So unfortunately, Proto-Vulcan can mean anything between this and pre-Surak times. It's a rather large net to cast, so unfortunately we cannot decipher more about this fabled battle that took place there, without reading the story. Suffice to say, it could have been from their medieval times, or even into an era of gunpowder. For an accompanying tale, there's the history of the Stone of Gol, and this clash on the Fire Plains may refer to one of the many battles fought between the warlord Sudok of Jalael in 624 BC. This is likely as the two nations were rivals for a long time, and the plains of Gol border the Shakar province. I love fantasy and science fiction lore, the histories and tales that can be woven into bringing a setting to life, And while not exactly a major talking point, this sort of deep dive into Star Trek apocryphal lore is a reminder as to why I enjoy it so much. Thanks for watching this video on the Fire Plains and the Forge of Vulcan. I've been Rick, and until the next one, live long and prosper.